welcome. This is Business Edge right here on News Central. I'm Tolulope Adeleru Balogun. First, the headlines. Nigeria's Lagos governor has presented a 1.155 trillion naira budget proposal for 2021. And the International Finance Corporation funds a $39 million recycling plant in Nigeria. We'll close this edition of the show with a few stories we're keeping our eyes on with NC4 to watch. We kick things off after this. And right back into that conversation about the Lagos State proposed appropriation bill for 2021. Tolutope Agunloye, team lead for budget, is on the line with us. Thank you so much. So Tolutope, let's look at the fact that Lagos is borrowing, Nigeria is borrowing as it is, but they have a recurrent expenditure that still relatively looks, I guess we might say, reasonable compared to the overall bill. Are we considering the possibility of more borrowing in the future for governments, particularly Lagos State, to be able to finance this appropriation bill?
So I'm of the opinion of that for states that borrow, the question would be, what are you borrowing for? So are you borrowing to pay salaries, or are you borrowing to set up infrastructures that citizens can benefit from? So if you're doing the latter, it simply means that we also need to do the best for our citizens whenever we borrow, so that generations unborn won't have any reason to keep on paying debt that has been generated.
Yeah.
However, Lagos State is viable in terms of revenue generation because of that's the commercial center of the country, and we know fully well that there are lots of businesses, both startups, SMEs, even big companies are all cited in Lagos. So in terms of taxes, from so many means of generating revenue for Lagos State. So would they be able to meet up? Yes, the projection for revenue was around 1.1 trillion, though the budget for last year was around 1.68 trillion, and this year is around 1.15 trillion. So it simply means that Lagos is capable compared to other states.
Yeah.
When you do the comparative analysis, Lagos is doing fine more than other states. Borrowing, yes, they will need to borrow, but then what are you borrowing for? That would be the question.
Okay, so borrowing is just one of the ways, loans, we know that is just one of the ways that we look to finance budgets and finance infrastructure and projects. We heard earlier, I think about 2 weeks ago, Nigeria's finance minister was apparently mulling an increase in the value-added tax. There was a lot of flack for that, of course, given the purchasing power of the average Nigerian, the GDP, and of course this corona pandemic year. But they've said that no, they will not increase the value-added tax. But Lagos is a state; it has taxation that it can add. Do you think we should also be looking at the potential for Lagos State to increase the taxation that falls within its boundaries?
Yes. So I'm of the opinion that Lagos State also needs to increase the tax net. So not necessarily for you to increase the tax levies, but rather increase the tax net, because so many people are evading tax. So you need to also bring in people to pay taxes. However, you also need to generate jobs, because if you have the unemployed now employed, it simply means that you get taxes as payees, income taxes. That will also help in pushing out some of the development that the state wants to once revenue is generated. Because we all know that budget is an estimate. You need revenue to be able to fund the budget. Once you have that revenue, then all things being equal, there will be development in the states. So I'm of that opinion that we need to increase the tax net, bring in people that are evading tax so that we can generate more revenue as Lagosians.
So looking at internally generated revenue as well, that's also part of the conversation. And earlier you mentioned the viability of Lagos as opposed to how other states in Nigeria might be financially solvent or viable. And earlier this year, just a few months ago, we heard that Lagos said they generated about 612.9 billion naira in the first quarter of 2020. And this actually dipped from what they actually generated last year. So they have a pool of money that has reduced, and Lagos has been doing well in terms of the internally generated revenue. What do we look for in terms of this in this coming appropriation year?
So we all know that the pandemic struck and businesses were affected. So now businesses are beginning to pick up, and that's the truth. However, some are yet to pick up due to the unrest that even happened recently with the NSAS protests. So with this, in terms of generating revenue internally, there might be a little drop. It all depends on how soon those businesses pick up in order for them to be able to, for Lagos State to generate revenue. However, we all know that there are other means also generating revenue. Those informal sectors like the market, the transport system, those ones will definitely continue. However, in terms of bringing this informal and the formal together, that is where we also need to go electronic in order to be able to block those leakages in order for us to be able to have a better revenue generation compared to the first quarter, which you said was 6.12 billion.
All right, so let's talk about what has been a very controversial topic, not just in Lagos, but beyond since it first became a law. We know that about 22 states in Nigeria actually have some form of pension bill, which gives lifelong pensions for former governors and their deputies. And a lot of reactions have been coming since Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu made the announcement that he's going to send an executive bill to the Lagos House of Assembly to repeal the one that Lagos has. So what does Lagos have exactly? So the law in Lagos provides for 6 new cars every 3 years, 100% of the basic salary of the incumbent governor, which looks about 7.7 million naira per annum, free healthcare for the beneficiary and their family members. Former governors are also entitled to furniture allowance, 300% of their annual basic salary. That's about 23.3 million naira. House maintenance allowance, 10% of their annual basic salary. Utility allowance, that's 20%. They also have a car maintenance allowance, that's 30% of their annual basic. There's entertainment allowance. There's also a personal assistant who's meant to earn about 25% of the governor's annual basic salary, which is 1.9 million. For a country to have 22 states that have some form of this law, being also seen as the poverty capital of the world, borrowing massively as we are, a lot of people are applauding the governor for this repeal. And this could be a way to block a leakage and to have more money at the disposal of the government. What's the stance of budgets on this?
So we've been pushing lots of advocacy around this, and we're happy to hear that Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu decided to propose a repeal amendment of that bill, which is laudable. The major thing is for him to finally get the state legislators to sign or to pass that bill in order for it to stop that or probably reduce our cost of governance, because with that huge amount, it simply means that our cost of governance is one of the things that during the NSAS protest, which was one of their demands actually, for them to reduce the cost of governance. It's laudable, but then the major thing is for them to see to the end.
Yeah.
Because we will reduce so many things. Imagine if you do 2 terms as a governor of Lagos State, you have access to houses in Abuja, in Lagos. Yeah. You know, that law was well defined, and it was passed in 2007. But for the governor to say that he wants to stop that particular pension law, it is very, very commendable, and we just hope that will be done soonest before we kick into the implementation of the 2021 budget.
Thank you so much, Tolulope Agunloye, team lead for budgets. Thank you so much for joining me. We definitely will have more of these conversations. I know budget has a solvency of the states reports that looks at the overall solvency of individual states in Nigeria, and we'll continue this conversation. As always, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and just before we go for a break, just adding some context to that pension bill in Lagos that might be repealed. As TOLUTOPE said, governors are entitled to one residential house each in Lagos and the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja, and the deputy governor as well gets a house in Lagos, any location, at their choice, at any cost, on public money. They also have a number of things. They get police officers and DSS operatives for life. We'll follow through and see how far this goes in the Lagos State House of Assembly. Now, moving on, $39 million is the number, and it's for a recycling plant in Nigeria. We'll have the details when Business Edge continues. You're welcome back. Now, the International Finance Corporation, IFC, has announced a $39 million financing package to build a continuous polymerization PET resin plant in Ogun State, southwest Nigeria. The plant would source over 20% of its raw materials from local waste plastics, thereby strengthening Nigeria's recycling and manufacturing sectors. The financing package includes a $24 million Senior A loan from the IFC and a $15 million subordinated loan from the International Development Association's private sector window blended finance facility. The funding, which would be released to NG Manufacturing Limited, a Nigerian manufacturer of PET resin used in packaging soft drinks and other household and pharmaceutical products, would help reduce the plastic waste in the environment. Nigeria has a relatively developing disposal, recycling, and waste management system for its plastic and non-plastic waste, with most solid waste ending up, unfortunately, in landfills, drainages, beaches, and water bodies. I have Temitope Okunnu on the line from Lagos. Temitope is a upcycler, a recycler, and the founder of the Fabi Foundation. Temitope, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, so let's look at this plant that's coming on board. $39 million in funding from the IFC, location in Ogun State. But in terms of the how, the when, the why, and the where, are we in a good place? Is this a fantastic thing to happen?
Yes, I think it is a fantastic thing, we have so many other recyclers and companies coming into the pipeline. We've got some proposals from other investors such as Sonnet, Owando Petroleum, that they are planning to build, the bottle-to-bottle and polymers of at Ogun State. We're trying to buy. They are trying to buy machines from Erima and build a plant in Lagos State. And there's another company coming to Lagos, the Ikorodu as well. So I think it's a fantastic decision to come to Lagos, Nigeria, to develop the recycling. You said Ogun State here, to develop this recycling plant and hub. This would actually encourage the culture of recycling among the people of Nigeria. And then we would have a total reduction in waste.
So what we're anticipating is that there'll be about 30,000 tons of used plastic bottles that are going to be recycled per year. This big factory is also going to employ, so we have direct and indirect employment coming as a result of this as well. You've mentioned, of course, that there are those who are trying to build such plants across the country. Why does it seem we might need some international intervention before we really get Nigerian states and the government working in this area, actively working in this area?
Well, I think we do not have, many recyclers do not have the capacity yet. So most of the people that are recycling at the moment are just striving. Before I entered into the space, I used to think it was a very lucrative and, beautiful. But aside the fact that I'm an environmentalist and I totally support recycling, I wouldn't even venture into it because the resources you pump into is much more than what you get. But then again, once we have partnerships, grants, and funding, it can be easier until such a time where everybody is actually recycling in the country. Then you can see, the the limelight. Just like Sweden. Sweden right now, in fact, they have a very unique challenge. There are no more waste in Sweden. Now they're buying from countries that do have waste. So countries like Nigeria and the rest.
Okay.
So recycling has been ongoing anyway for Nigeria for some time now, but most especially the informal sector control the 80% of this industry, and that is why right now with the IFC coming up and the other companies coming up, there will be a lot of awareness, not just among the informal sector alone, but also other people that are supposed to key into this initiative.
Okay, so let's ask, why the IFC? Why would we see the International Finance Corporation being involved in such a venture as this? It's going to take 2 years for the plant to be fully operational. And of course, we know that the company that is behind this has been in Nigeria since about 2014, and they currently employ 500 people. So why do we see the IFC venturing into this venture?
Well, I think the world is going into recycling at the moment. IFC has been in Nigeria for quite a while, but if this is the first time they're coming into this, they've seen something good that could come out of this. I mean, Lagos State alone generates thousands of tons of waste materials every day. And not just Lagos, we have a whole lot of population in Ogun State, as well as in Calabar, as well as in Kano and the rest. So if at this time they are coming in, I think we're grateful. And it's just wonderful. Others should also liaise with other recyclers that are doing a whole lot of work, especially in Lagos State. I mean, Loma, for example, is doing a lot recently. Apart from the awareness level that I mentioned, recently Loma started regulating the industry, and at the federal level, we have MISRA, with the EPL policy that gave back to the Food and Beverage Recycling Alliance. So things are already going on. Companies are coming together to recover plastics. I mean, manufacturers are coming together to recover plastics that they churn out. Recently, Sprite came up with a beautiful plastic that enables recyclability of their plastic bottles. So I think this is just the best time for companies to invest in the recycling sector, particularly in Nigeria.
Temitope, thank you so much. That's as much as we can take. We've been speaking to Temitope Okunnu. She is a upcycler, a recycler, and she is, of course, the founder of the FabiFound International Foundation. Thank you for your time today.
Very much. Bye.
Bye. All right, before we wrap things up, just a bit more information on that particular story. So we are anticipating with estimates that they will be able to recycle about 30,000 tons of plastic per year. And according to official figures, Nigeria generates some 32 million tons of waste per year, of which 2.5 million tons are plastic waste. And as we said earlier, the majority end up in landfills, sewers, beaches, and water bodies. All right, the next stop we have for you is NC4 to watch, and that is how we'll be wrapping up Business Edge for this edition. We start here in Nigeria, where the Nigerian fintech Kuda has secured millions in seed funding. Kuda, a fintech startup in Nigeria that operates a popular mobile-first challenger bank for consumers and small businesses, has announced that it has raised $10 million, the biggest seed round ever to be raised in Africa. Moving to the northern part of the continent, Egypt's GDP growth projected to remain stable. Egypt's Minister of Finance, Mohamed Maiti, has announced that he expects the country's GDP growth to stand at around 2.8 to 3.5% during the fiscal year 2020-2021. The minister's remarks came during the week-long virtual Egypt's Green Economy program organized by the British Egyptian Business Association and the Egyptian British Chamber of Commerce. From the northern part of the continent, we move now to the east, where Kenya Court of Appeal has authorized taxation on card interchange fees. Now, consumers using a debit or credit card to make purchases may have to pay higher charges, as the Court of Appeal gave leeway for taxation on interchange fees. A 3-judge bench at the Court of Appeal ruled that payments made by APSA to credit card companies were royalties, thus subject to a 20% withholding tax. And we're right back on the western part of the continent, where Nigerian billionaire plans to dig platinum mine in Zimbabwe. Bavura Holdings Limited, owned by Nigerian billionaire Benedict Peters, has earmarked $1 billion for the development of a platinum mine in Zimbabwe. And this is according to the country manager, Leono Malanga. The 3,000-hectare concession where it plans to dig the mine is in Silos, about 80 kilometers south of Zimbabwe's capital, Harare, and close to existing platinum mines. And that's as much as we can take on this edition of Business Edge. As always, thank you so much for joining. Head to our website, www.newscentral.africa, for more business stories from across the continent. Until next time, I'm Tolulope Adeleru Balogun. Do have a fantastic day.